Well, I am really happy to have my dear friend Christine Pilata Reeder here to record this episode of the Moms in Motion podcast. She is one of the members of my group in Pittsford, New York. And this is actually a re-record, right, Christine?
It is.
So we recorded this a week ago Friday, and we were so proud of ourselves. We were as pleased as punched with everything we did. And when Michael went to edit it and check it out and post it, there was nothing there. So we're hoping that round two fixed all the mistakes that I made. It was clearly a user error on my end. So if there was anything you didn't like that you said the first time, Christine, we can go ahead and get it right this time. You're such a good sport about all this. So anyway,
Fun.
So tell us a little bit about yourself, who you live with. Let's start there. Let's talk about yourself and your family for a minute.
Okay. My name is Christine, and I'm married to Scott Reeder, and we have two children, Kalia, who's 9, and Karsten, who's 8. We moved here 3 years ago from Indiana. My husband's originally from there, and I lived out there for 20 years and convinced him I needed him to come back to New York, and finally he agreed. So we've been here and loved every minute of being here. So I'm so happy that I got him to come out here, because when we first started dating, he said he would never live on the East Coast, and I proved him wrong.
Yay.
Yeah.
Well, this is one time that I'm glad he was wrong.
Right. Exactly.
Well, maybe a lot of times I'm glad he's wrong, but no, I'm really glad that he was wrong, and we're so glad that we found you. So how long have you been a member in our group?
It will be 3 years, because we moved out here in June, and I think my first practice was in July that I hooked up with you guys.
I remember that. I do remember your first practice.
Yeah.
So tell us a little bit what it was like. So you have family sort of east of Rochester, but so when you came to Pittsford, New York, you really didn't know anybody, correct?
No.
This was kind of a way to get closer to your family. So when you came, what was it like trying to establish people?
It was, I had one girlfriend that I grew up with that actually lived within the city of Rochester.
Mm-hmm.
And she's the one that kind of steered me in what directions to kind of go to. But once we got here, I was overwhelmed, because I hadn't even thought of, like, what am I going to do for myself? I had been focusing in on, okay, I have to get my kids enrolled in school. I need to, my husband had found us a place for us on Craigslist. I'm like, who does that? That is so bizarre. Okay, so we're going to come here. And I got here, and things kind of just fell into place. I feel like our neighbor had come back, and she had found out that I was a runner, and she was like, I have this group. I know that they're for you, and I see them at races all the time. I need you to, Google Moms in Motion. And I'm like, okay. Because when I first got here, I'm like, what am I going to do? I'm so used to running with a group of girls. There was, 3 to 5 of us that used to run 2 pretty regularly all the time, and they were my good friends. And so that was my comfort level. I was not comfortable with running on my own. I'm like, this is so boring.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I just didn't have that. I kind of wanted a group thing. And when I Googled and contacted you, it kind of put things in motion, in all seriousness.
Right. Pun intended.
Right. And then from that first time running with you guys, it forged everything. Everything came from, Moms in Motion. People told me at Moms in Motion that this would be a good pediatrician. Okay, yep, that's who I'm going to have. I forged our whole family life around recommendations and everything from everyone I met. Those first couple times, I'm like, I felt like that was where all my trust was coming. I just was like, this has got to be who I'm going to trust. Yeah.
That's terrific. so joining a well-established group was obviously a great way for you to integrate yourself into the community. And then, of course, within our group, you were one of those people that just joined in and it was like you've been a member forever, which is terrific too. It says so much about you. So you had been a runner before when you were in Indiana, and maybe even, where did you grow up? Central New York?
Considered upstate, north of Syracuse.
Okay.
In Mexico, New York, a little small town.
Not as warm as the country of Mexico.
Remotely.
No,
right. But I grew up playing sports. I played soccer all through junior high and high school, and track and softball and volleyball. But running was always something I did to get ready for a sport. It was never like, I'm going to go for a run. It was like, oh, I have to train. I need to go, do that sort of thing. And then when I was in Indiana, one of my girlfriends, we decided we were going to train for like a 5K or something. And I was like, okay. And we would just go on little runs together. And then it became like that was our time that we could meet up and we could hang out. And then it became that we always trained for the Chicago Shamrock Shuffle. And that was 5 miles, and that was my max. Like I was like, okay, that's comfortable. That's it. That's all I want to do. And then my one girlfriend convinced me that it would be a great idea to run a half marathon that was called the Polar Dash. But it was actually 14 miles. And I was like, what am I doing? Like, why am I doing this?
Right.
But it was like one of those things that I was like, okay, if I tell her I'll do it, then I'll do it. And it will be done. It'll be I'll say that it's an experience of life that I did this, and that's it. So to Mom's emotion, my story changed a little bit.
Yeah. So you came into this thinking, okay, I did 1.5 marathon. I'm going to run with friends just to, you have my sanity. Your kids are little, you move to a new town. So this part's great. So joining our group, there tends to be a lot of really positive peer pressure. And we're going to classify it as positive because we're adults now, but there was a lot of peer pressure on you. So can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, it was funny because I never wanted to miss out on practice or anytime anyone was running. And then the group of girls that I would be running with typically were training for marathons and things like that, where they'd be needing to run 10 miles that day. And I'm like, I just really want to be with them. And they were like, you're training already. Like, why not? And I'm like, oh, okay. Like maybe just this one, because it was going to be someone's first half marathon. So I was like, oh, okay. And it was going to be in Syracuse, where, my family was from, my dad was from that area. And I'm like, oh, that will be, fun, I'll do that. And so I decided to do that in, the middle of winter, which I was like, why every single time I'm running half marathon, does it have to be freezing cold? Right. Like, why do I do this to myself? But it was just, the great group of friends that run together and encourage each other, and you don't feel like you're running 10 miles. I think that was also, something to it, that I didn't ever feel like it was a major training time. It was like, oh, I get to hang out with the girls, and then we get to go to Starbucks after and have coffee and hang out. I'm like, that was my focus. And it became such a ritual for my family that, my husband and my kids knew Saturday mornings were, okay, Mom's not going to be available until after 10. So it just kind of lended itself to it, and it continued on ever since.
Next thing you know, so your fear of missing out, which sometimes can have a negative impact on people, but on you, it really was fear of missing out on all the fun and fitness that was happening. So how many half marathons have you done since you moved to Rochester?
I would say at least, 7 or 8, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's terrific.
Because,
Go
I
ahead.
think so. No, I was just trying to think. I'm like, I know I've done Ithaca 3, so I'm like
Yeah,
Syracuse twice. So I'm like, that's right
that's
there.
5 right there.
Yeah,
Plus, you've done Rochester
twice. Yeah,
twice. Yeah.
yeah. Oh, and then Pittsburgh that I did for my mom. So
Right.
yeah,
Right. Yeah. So I see that a lot in your social media postings. Your mom, I think is okay to say, has been diagnosed with multiple
MS.
sclerosis.
Mm-hmm.
And that is something that that you really take to heart in terms of, taking good care of yourself and honoring her while, that you can move, freely. So you want to talk about that for a little bit?
Yeah, I think growing up, she was very active and played tennis and did aerobics and things like that. And then as years have gone by, I mean, she's done amazing. And her famous quote that my family always says is like, "Oh no, I'm fine." I'm like, "Okay, right, okay."
Mm-hmm.
But just knowing that she was such an active person, I think that instilled in me that I wanted to remain active as well. And I knew that if she was capable, I think I could have convinced her to run a 5K with me someday,
Sure.
something like that.
Right.
And I've done walks for MS and things like that. But I feel like if I can be as strong as she has been for, 30 plus years of
Mm-hmm.
going through this, I can handle it. I'm like, I'm going to do this run for her. I'm going to do this half marathon.
Right.
And I feel like if I'm active in fundraising for a cause, I feel like I get more out of it. Like
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if there's a reason for me, I can run. Okay, then if I have the opportunity to raise money, then I'm going to do that too.
Right, right. And one of the things that I love about you is that you've been fit your whole life. You've been active, you've been athletic your whole life. And that parenting didn't stop you like it stopped some women. And then you've continued to, you've sought out your tribe wherever you've been, which
Mm-hmm.
is really terrific. And that you're following the legacy of your mom. And then with your 2 kids, they're very active. They're young, but they're very active. And you do a lot of really active activities, even if you're not at sports games and practices and things like that. You do a lot of active things with them. How do you think how do those decisions affect being a mom for you?
I think that I want to teach them that there is so much out there to do. And just the other day, Kelly and I were talking, and we had talked about playing tennis. And I'm like, that's one of those great sports that, you only need one other person. And it can be
Mm-hmm.
something that you and your friends are like, "Oh, do you want to go play a game of tennis?" And I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
and golf is like that too. Like my husband and I talk about that we don't necessarily want our kids to be like, "Oh, they're going to be the next lacrosse star and that's
Mm-hmm.
are going to be all of our focus." I really want them to be able to play a whole wide range of games and
Mm-hmm.
sports, and even just have something in common when they go to college or they meet
Right.
someone and say, "Oh yeah, I've hiked that mountain." I
Mm-hmm.
just something that they can have on their own as well. Like
Right.
I think as a family we like to do that. We like to kayak, we like to go hiking, and
Mm-hmm.
there all types of things. And I think if I instill in them that this is a great way for you to remain active on your own
Mm-hmm.
and meet people. Like
Right.
I really want them to be able to have that.
Mm-hmm.
So
That's terrific.
yeah.
Um, would you say now you are human sunshine? You
Oh
are
my
always
gosh.
positive and upbeat. You are really, and I'm not just saying that, but it's true. You're always upbeat and happy. But I would imagine that you are still human and you have down days. What does How has being part of our group helped you on days or periods of time in your life where maybe you were struggling with something, and even whether or not you shared it, but just how has having a tribe helped you with any of those things?
I think knowing that everyone has your back. There's been times where I've sat back on a run and just listened to people kind of going through, their things that they were going through. And I feel like just knowing you have someone to talk to, and a lot of times it just needs to be just hanging out with people that are so positive. I feel like that is the best thing about this group, is that everyone has your back no matter what. Like you could, like you said, like have a really bad day and you can count on everyone being like, yeah, it's all right. You don't have to, you don't have to be anyone else but yourself around this whole group. And that's what I love as well. No one's going to judge you, and they're going to support you no matter what. And I've had times where I'm like, oh my gosh, I have no one to watch my kids. And this is like before I even really knew a lot of the girls in the group. And I like looked at my feed, and I had like 7 messages from, moms of being like, okay, call this person. I'll take your kids. I mean, people that, had grown kids that had moved away and being like, no, I'll come watch your kids. I'm like, where do you don't get that, anywhere else. I feel like it's an amazing group in that way. Like you just have a sense of security that, you know what, I can be myself, and people are just going to accept and help. And, that's the most important thing to me.
Yeah, we're definitely a full service tribe. We really don't know each other with makeup or our hair done and in fancy clothes. We, once a year we have an anniversary party and everyone's like, oh, I didn't know your hair looked like that.
I know, like no one knew I had long hair for the whole winter.
Right, exactly. And also, we have, I always say we're the kind of friends that would pluck each other's chin hairs when we're in the nursing home. We'll have it all covered. We'll know what we need from each other.
Right. I know.
Yeah. So that is good stuff. We went on a big trip back at the end of March of this year. 29 of us went out to Zion, Utah to run the Zion Half Marathon. And that was probably your first really big trip as a MIM, right? I mean, That was the first time you had done smaller, more local, maybe a couple of hours away excursions. Yeah. So what was that like for you to be on a trip like that with so many different people that you weren't related to?
It was so exciting. Like I remember when that race popped up and people are like, we're going to do this. And I thought to myself, I'm like, oh, I don't know. It's far and it's a lot of money. But I was like, I don't think I'll ever get out there. What if I don't ever get out there? And this is my opportunity that, I'm passing on. And I felt compelled, like I had to. Like I told my husband, I'm like, this is my birthday, my Christmas, like my Mother's Day. I'm like I need to do this. And it was so exciting. And then it was funny because I got my own flight out there and rented the car, and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm driving by myself from Las Vegas, Utah. I was like, what are you doing? Yeah. But it was like, seriously, that drive I only had to drive like 2 hours because then I met up with, the other girls, but I remember just like turning up the music, driving through the desert and just being like, this is incredible. Like I will remember this always. Like it was such a great feeling. And that trip was amazing. I never worked out as much on a trip and ate so well. Like it was and I loved that everyone kind of did their own thing, but there were so many different groups that branched off that I was able to connect with some of the MIMs that I had never really had a chance to connect with. And I love that. I feel like, we rode in a van for, a couple hours and hiked, and it was great. I'll treasure that for sure.
Yeah, me too. It was absolutely the trip of a lifetime. And, and there, you go on a trip like that with your family, and I know my kids would not appreciate it, but you go on that trip with a bunch of, in this case, adult women who we had a similar goal, obviously, to run the half marathon, but also to see this part of the country that so many of us hadn't seen. And there was just so much laughter, of course, and gratitude. And it was really special. I mean, it was life-changing for me, in that I had just turned 50 in November, and that was my justification for going, that I am going to be 50, so I'm going on this trip. And it really was amazing, and seeing places that I'd never seen before, and seeing how vast they are. And, and seeing that, like I said, with women who, you could laugh with, and really just appreciate it all. And it seemed like also time went really slow in a lot of ways on those days we were there, because we were there Thursday to Monday. And that was really, it was spectacular. There is something about traveling with your people like that is it's a huge blessing, that's for sure.
And I think everyone wanted that great experience too, and felt it, like you just felt it, that everyone was so appreciative of everyone being there, and seeing the amazing sights, and then running that insane course.
Right. Right.
So
that they completely did not describe accurately at all. No. But it was, again, like, I know I can picture if I had gone on that trip with somebody else or a different group of people, there could have been a lot to complain about, weather-wise, and a lot of things, and there just wasn't really complaining. I mean, the obvious was noted, that 9 out of the 13 miles were off-road, right, and with like zero support, but everybody made the best of it, and really had each other's backs, and made sure that everyone was covered and taken care of. And it really was it was the opportunity for people to really be outside of our comforts, for all of us to be outside of our comfort zones, and have a life-changing experience in my book.
Right. And especially for you, who decided, okay, I will do the half marathon.
Yeah, the night before.
I love that. Like, I was like, she is awesome.
Yeah, it's not a training plan I recommend, the non-training program. And, I was going to go on the trip just to go on the trip. I didn't care if I was a Sherpa or whatever. It was totally fine. I had planned to train, and then I didn't train. I'm like, well, I'm still going. I never even thought of not going. And even the night before, I'm like, I don't know what I'll do. I don't know. And then, like, well, I'll start, and I'll just turn around and go back if I, if it doesn't go well, there was really no turning around. Right. It was a point-to-point race, and again, completely inaccurately described all the way around. However, it was a lot of walking, almost all walking, and I met people that I had never known before. It really, and again, like I'm sure you've had this, where you get running angels, where you're not, things aren't going as planned, and then all of a sudden somebody appears who's like ready to be there with you. And that's happened to me, and it was awesome that day. Yeah, it was an amazing experience. I was pretty proud of myself for my non-training training. It hurt, but it was worth it.
But that was the best thing, coming back and all of us going, I was like, I thought Bonnie was going to be at the house. Like, they're like, oh, she must be at the other house. And then when we found out you weren't there, and then when we found out that you completed it, we were like just running around screaming. Like, we were so happy for you. Like, that was what was so awesome, that all of the people in the house, and I think that we just fed off each other, that we wanted all of us to gain what we each went there to gain. It was right. It was great in that. Yeah,
it was, and me having been the slowest person there, and I don't say that like for, like it was just the truth, and here, you guys trained, you planned, you did everything right. And for you guys to be so excited for me, who was a little bit hapless, but that was, again, that's the, that's that tribe mentality where, we all want each other to do really well, no matter how we get there. And it was amazing. I was, I think in other circumstances, I might've been a little embarrassed at how slow I ended up going, but with you guys, it was terrific, because it was like, holy cats, woman, look what you did. So It was great. That was great. So if you were, like, what would you say to somebody who, maybe a little bit more of a, not sure if they need a tribe. What would be
Mhm.
your message to somebody, not to just to join? I mean, hopefully people are listening to this all over the country and maybe deciding whether they want to start a team or become part of a team, of a MIM team. What would you say to them if they're on the fence? What would be the pros for you?
Well, I think we have like all encompassing that people join for a lot of different reasons. And I think the best thing is that there's so many people that are at the status of triathletes, they've accomplished Ironman, and, some people that just want to get out one day a week. We have the wide range where there are people that, you don't see on Saturdays, but they get their own training in and have us to kind of be a background support too. There are people that would rather run on their own, but you also have the knowledge from 90 other women that are right there to shoot you a text or email and maybe just join you for 3 miles of your 20-mile run. I think the best part about it is that breaking it down, we're all the same, that we want to care for our families. We want to care for try to take care of ourselves in the best way we can. And then we have that drive that, and it might be that some people are like, I'd rather just walk a mile on my own or with a friend. But then there's the ones that are like, I'm going to train for the next 10 months for this major race, and that's the beauty of it. Like we have something for everyone. And I think that's the best feeling.
Yeah, absolutely. You've been really big in philanthropy since you joined. I mean, I think, no matter where you are, you would be a very philanthropic person, but you really have jumped on a couple of things since I've, at least over, let's say the last year. I mean, I know before that, but I'm thinking in particular of Happy Birthday Cha Cha Cha, which one of our fellow members created. And you just really jumped right in with her and have done so much for that. You do a lot for our Heather Boyum Iron Angel 5K and the foundation that we created after our member Heather Boyum was tragically killed 5 years ago, and you didn't even know her. So what is the philanthropic part? How does that sort of feed your soul?
I think finding a purpose, for myself, and that is another thing that I loved about this group, that it was like, okay, we're going to care for ourselves, but we also are going to use what we know to help others in need. And I go back, my mom was always that type of person too, that was always wanting to do something for everyone. I remember, being younger and not understanding it so much. And then as I got older, I'm like, it makes me feel like if I have the capability of helping someone else and know that there are these kids that, especially with Happy Birthday Cha Cha Cha, there's these kids that are growing up not like mine. If I can bring, joy to these little kids on their birthday, then I feel like that's what I need to do. If I know I can do it, I want to do it. And I feel like my family has been that way as well. My sisters also. And I think it just kind of fulfills me. Like when I, just in little things of knowing that I didn't know Heather necessarily, but I knew the impact that she had on you guys. Just seeing her through you just made me want to jump in and, do what I could to make the most out of, this foundation and the experiences that we have. So I think it's just built in me that I'm like, I need to do something to give back.
And then to pair that with your other passion of fitness and you really are an all-around ambassador for everything that is Moms in Motion. That is for sure.
Thanks, Bonnie.
You're welcome. Anything I didn't ask you that you'd like to share, or any
think
final closing
I don't know.
thoughts? Do you have a mantra when you're running? If you're having a tough run, do you ever have anything that you revert to that's like, okay, what, either a mantra, or I know I used to count steps and I'd get up to 20 on one leg and then I would, start over again. Do you do anything to help get you through?
I definitely do the soon shall pass.
That's good.
Yeah,
That's very good.
That was definitely, I've used that a couple times.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? I tend to use that time. My father passed away when I was a senior in high school, and I am always talking to him. When it is hard, I'm like, okay, Dad, like just like get me through this next mile. Like it is, it's definitely that is my channel.
Yeah,
I tune in for sure.
That's terrific.
So, yeah.
Do you get any winks from him where you can tell that I'm sure you do get winks from him where you can tell that he's gotten you through something or he's right there? Oh,
totally. It's so many things that when I'm out there, I kind of hear his voice, so yeah, definitely.
What a great way to connect with him.
Yeah.
I'm sure he's very, very proud of everything that you've accomplished.
I hope so.
Yes, I'm sure he is. Well, you are just an absolute, like I said before, you are sunshine in a human. You are the first one to jump in to help somebody. You're always positive and smiling, and it's, and it's who you are. I mean, it's very obvious that it's who you are. It's not something that you just pull out on Saturday mornings. So you have been just a terrific friend, and so grateful to have you as part of the group. And thank you for being not the slightest bit annoyed with me when I told you that we had to re-record this.
Absolutely not, Bonnie.
I very much appreciate that. And so fingers crossed this interview came out great. And if not, we'll do it again.
Not a problem.
Well, thank you so much. I love you, girl. And I'm so happy that you're part of Moms in Motion in Pittsford, New York. And I will see you soon.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Bonnie.
Thanks, Christine. Bye-bye.
Bye.